Welcome to Truth in the Dark, where light cuts through the shadows of an ever-darkening world. I'm your host, Drew Tucker. In this first ever episode of Truth in the Dark, we tackle two of the most important questions anyone could ever ask. Is truth real and knowable? And what's God got to do with it? For the next half hour, we're going to examine how truth actually works and why the evidence for God is stronger than you may think. Stay tuned. Can truth be known? Truth is absolutely knowable. Here's a simple way to see it. Take a look at much of modern higher education. Students spend tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to learn practical skills like balancing a checkbook, managing finances, or mastering a trade, things they really need, but to sit in philosophy, humanities, or psychology class, where they often are told things like, number one, there is no truth, all truth is relative, or you can't know anything for sure. All right, so let's break those down. I actually love hearing these expensive statements because each one ends up proving the exact opposite, that truth is real and absolute. Let me show you. First, there is no truth. Really? Is that statement true? If it is, then truth exists. Congratulations, you just proved yourself wrong by saying there is no truth. Because if that statement is true, then guess what? Bingo, we have truth. So you spent all that money for nothing. All right, the second statement, all truth is relative. This is very, very popular in our world today. When people say this, when they say truth is relative, they mean truth changes depending on your situation or your perspective, right? This is your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. Truth is subjective, truth is relative, which is the opposite of truth being absolute and universal, meaning truth is true for everybody at all time. This is the saying of all truth is relative. But notice, they're making a universal, absolute truth statement when they say all truth is relative. That is self-contradictory. Something cannot be true and untrue at the same time. You can't deny absolute truth without proving absolute truth at the same time. So when someone says truth is relative, well, is that statement relative or are you giving an absolute truth statement? They're making an absolute truth statement. So by their arguments against truth, they're actually showing that truth is absolute. All right, finally, and probably my favorite one is you can't know anything for sure. I love that one. Can you imagine spending the kind of money that it takes to go to the universities today just to find out you can't know anything for sure? I mean, that's got to be rough. And I'll tell you that the reason that students are taught this is because these professors are trying to get their kids to think. They're trying to get their students to think, right? Think outside the box, question everything that they know to be true. And that's a good exercise. But here's the problem. The problem is that's where they leave them. That's where these professors leave them. But they leave these kids hanging. And that's how they leave college. They leave their college thinking, truth is, you can't know truth. Problem is, you got them thinking, but then you left them with no answers. No answers. So they say things like, you can't know anything for sure. This is based on the idea that if you don't know everything about something, then you don't know anything about that something. They use it in terms like, if you don't know something fully, then you can't know something truly about the part of the whole, right? So you got to know the whole universe to know anything about the part of the universe. And since nobody knows all of the universe, then it's impossible to know truth about any part of the universe. All right. So, but think about it. Are they sure you can't know anything for sure? Are they sure about that statement? Because if you know you can't know anything for sure, and you know that, they just contradicted themselves again. It's something they actually know. All right. So what's the point? You can't escape truth. That's the point. The moment you try to deny truth, you end up proving truth's existence. And that means truth is not only real, it's the same for everyone all the time. It's knowable, and apparently it's inescapable. It doesn't matter what you believe. Reality is still reality. You can't step into traffic convinced you won't get hit, but reality will hit you hard. Truth doesn't care what you believe. It also doesn't change no matter how deeply you feel about something. You can believe down deep in your gut that 2 + 2 is 5, but your math test will show you the truth. Reality doesn't bend to feelings. And to be quite honest, this is a big problem for, not just the youth in our culture today, but even our Christian culture and churches. A lot of times what Christians today do, they determine right and wrong, good teaching, bad teaching, by how it makes them feel. How does that sound to me? Does it sound good to me, or does it sound bad to me? Because if it sounds bad to me, then it's probably not true. If it sounds good, then that's probably true. That's not how we gauge truth. So this is true in the secular world. This is an issue. In the secular world, it's also an issue in the Christian world. But truth, the same applies everywhere. You can believe you're a woman, but XY chromosomes remain an inescapable fact. You can believe marriage includes you and your dog. Yeah, you heard that right. You and your dog. I'm not making that up. That's actually happened. There's like at least 6 cases in the UK. It's coming to a city near you. But truth will have something to say about that. And you can believe there is no God, but belief doesn't erase his existence. No matter how you feel, no matter what you believe. In fact, for truth to be knowable at all, the God of the Bible must exist. And not just any God. It's got to be the God of the Old and New Testament, because only the biblical creator provides the reasonable and logical foundation that makes truth actually possible. The alternative to this, which is we're talking in the beginning God, right? Very simple. But the alternative to that is in the beginning dirt. Now that's the atheist worldview. Let's see how that holds up with truth. See, if the atheists were completely honest about their worldview, he'd have to conclude, as many of them already have, that you believe the way you believe, and I believe the way I believe, simply because we're the result of millions of years of chemical reactions. In that world, I can't help how I think, and they can't help how they think. Neither can you. We're just meat suits with brains firing off chemicals that determine our thoughts and beliefs. Chemicals we have no ultimate control over. But if that's true, then the atheist can't really help what he believes, and neither can you. Think about it, guys. Millions of years ago, according to their worldview, the origin of our existence was a primordial soup, and you got chemical reactions over chemical reactions just firing, and eventually you come to us, and all we are is just a result of chemical reactions. Does that make sense? Hope you can follow that. But does the atheist actually behave according to this worldview that they claim? See, the atheist gets online and argues with people like a keyboard warrior, and goes to university and teaches impressionable children and young people, goes to the streets and protests, and likes to dye their hair wonderful colors. Why does the atheist feel like he needs, or she needs, to argue and persuade others to get on their side when our minds are already chemically determined by Darwinian evolution? Because whether he believes it or not, you see, the reality is he lives in God's world. he lives in a world where there's truth and there's falsehood. There's truth and there's lies. There's truth and there's not truth. That is a world that God has created. You see, persuasion, the act of trying to get somebody to think like you, that assumes truth and error, that somebody's right, somebody's wrong. Every time the atheist argues, he's actually proving God exists. Because in God's world, truth and lies are real. Right and wrong are real conditions. And because we are created in the image of God, we have just this natural compulsion to get people to get on the right side and not be on the wrong side. But if there was no in the beginning God, this doesn't make a lot of sense. If it's in the beginning dirt, then we are just the result of chemical reactions. And we really can't help the way that we think because that's what evolution has brought us to. If that makes any sense to you? Hope it does. But it actually gets worse than that, folks. If everything has been evolving for billions of years, then our brains are still evolving, which raises the question, have our brains evolved far enough to actually understand reality? Or are we still in the middle of the process, unable to know truth with any amount of certainty? Add to that the idea that the world itself is in constant evolutionary change. And what do you get? An evolving brain trying to make sense of an evolving environment? And yet somehow in that system, we're supposed to think we can know truth? But in a million years, whatever's true today won't be true then because everything's changing. Now, compare that dismal story with the biblical truth. God created this world for you to live in it. And God created you to live in this world. One could say that's a match made in heaven. That means we're not accidents of chemistry. We're designed beings in a designed universe. And because of that, we can know truth with certainty. We're built for it. And this world is made for it. So truth is actually knowable because the God of the Bible exists. If he doesn't exist, then truth is about as real as Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. If you're not following me very well so far, let me put it to you this way. Look, you got 5 senses, right? Hearing, sight, smelling, taste, touch. You got these 5 senses. If they're evolving and your brain's still evolving, then how can you trust that these 5 senses are actually giving you accurate information? And how can you trust that your brain is interpreting that information that it's receiving? On top of that, you're in a world that is supposedly always changing. And so how can you trust the information that you're getting? Will the information be the same tomorrow as it is today if we live in this changing, evolving world started by, in the beginning, dirt? But truth can be known. We can trust our senses. We can trust our brain. We can trust the world around us if we were made to live in this world and the world was made for us to live in it. Well, now we complement each other and we can trust our senses because our senses were designed to live in this environment and collect this information, and our brains were designed to interpret that information correctly. Does that make sense? All right, so it's very reasonable to believe that truth is knowable only if in the beginning God. In the beginning dirt, it's pretty messy. The other thing that you have is you have this world with the laws of physics that are immutable. Immutable is a nerd word. I said I wasn't going to use nerd words. There's a couple. Immutable just means it doesn't change. Unchanging. The laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, the laws of mathematics, the laws of logic. These things are not changing. This is the world in which we see. This is what's observable, testable, repeatable. And if that's what we see, then we see these immutable laws. You could add the law of morality to that too. Then there must be a lawgiver. And we see this unchanging world. that's designed for existence and knowledge. So we can actually know truth because of in the beginning God. Let's back up a little bit, going back to that idea of you can't know anything unless you know everything, right? So truth cannot be known. Well, I get it. Well, if you don't know everything, then a really good idea is to find somebody who does know everything. And if you can find somebody who does know everything, well, then they can tell you what is true about the parts of existence without you having to know everything, because that person knows everything. And it goes right back to truth is knowable, truth is possible because of in the beginning God, because God is omniscient, he knows everything. And so he has revealed to us the interpretation of our world. And so we can actually know truth. We know that we're not just living in a dream. We know that we're not living in some Hindu's God's dream. That's actually a worldview, that we're actually not here. We're just actually kind of playing out a dream that's being made up by a God. Then, of course, there's always the sci-fi stuff that we're living in a matrix. We're living in a simulation. This actually isn't real. It's just simply a matrix. Our brains are actually being used to power an alien ship somewhere. And the alien ship gives us this matrix in order to keep our brains active and firing so it can power their spaceship. Why isn't that happening, right? Try to get back to Earth here. All right, yeah, so any of those things are a possibility when you don't have somebody know everything, because any of these things could be possible. But if there is somebody, and there is, that knows everything, well, then they can tell you honestly what's going on. And so God has spoken, and he has revealed himself, and he has revealed truth about our world and about you. And so you can know these things. And these things are only possible if in the beginning God, in the beginning dirt, everything goes crazy, and there's no hope, and it's called darkness. But this is truth in the dark. So let's check out what God has said. Let's check out Isaiah 45:18. Isaiah 45:18 says this, "For thus says the Lord, who created the heavens, he is God, who formed the earth and made it, he established it, he did not create it empty. He formed it to be inhabited." You see that? And it says, "I am the Lord, and there is no other," and there isn't. He says, "I formed it to be inhabited." So you see, the Bible tells us that God made the world, and he didn't make it empty. And that's treading on the theistic evolution stuff, and we'll talk about that in depth later. Theistic evolution, meaning could God have used evolution to create everything? Well, this verse right here gives a little hint into the truth about that, whether he did or not. And he says, when he made the earth, he didn't create it empty. He formed it to be inhabited. And so this world is formed for us to live in it, and we are formed to live in this world. And because of that match, we are able to truly trust that what we're experiencing is really happening. And why? Because God designed your brain to live in this world. He designed your senses to receive the information in this world, and he designed this world to be known. Psalm 115:16 says, "The heavens are the Lord's heavens, but the earth he has given to the children of man." And so this world is designed for us to live in it. We are designed to live in this world. Proverbs 20:12 says, "The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both." The Lord has made them both. And if you have a friend who maybe is an ear doctor, an eye doctor, you talk about irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity. It's evidence for God. Things in this world are so complex that if there's any one part missing to the whole, it doesn't work. You can't have a half-evolved eye to see. You can't have a half-evolved ear to hear. All of the complex systems have to be there at the same time We'll talk about that more in episode 2, where it takes more faith to be an atheist than to believe in God. So God has made the ear and he's made the eye. He's created these things so that we have these senses. These senses are designed for us to live in this world. You can know what you see. You can trust what you're seeing. You can trust what you're hearing. You can trust your brain to interpret what you're hearing and seeing. All right? Most of the time. Most of the time. Things get a little weird out there in this fallen world. Job 32:8. Job says, "But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand." See, now there's some information you don't get from in the beginning dirt. It is the breath of the Almighty that makes him understand. So if anybody's ever read a little bit in Genesis, you know that God formed Adam out of the dirt, right? And he breathed life into him and he became a living soul. And so that's where we understand that the image of God was placed upon man, that the law of God is written in his heart. And so man, because we're created in the image of God, not that we're little gods, okay, or that we can do the same thing God can, but we are a reflection of some of the things about God. And that's why our ability to reason, our logic, our communication, our understanding, our self-awareness is on a whole other level than the animal kingdom. That's the reason. I mean, not to take anything. I mean, of course, there's going to be plenty of tree huggers out there that are going to say, hey, look, man, the dolphins, they've got an incredible communication system. You know, whales, whew, boy, we could learn a two or thing from the whales. Look, I get it, but whales have never created anything that Mozart has created. They've never created a book. They've never created email. They've never created this type of technology. I mean, look, I'm not taking anything away from God's creatures because they are amazing and they have incredible gifts. But it's not on the same level as us. And why? Why are we so different? Very vastly different. Not like little increments over millions of years different, like huge gap different. That's what we see in our scientific world of observable, testable, repeatable, all right? And so why are we this way? The Bible tells us because God breathed himself into man, and that's why we understand what we understand. That's why we can know truth. That's why we can know truth, because in the beginning, God. Isaiah 1:18 says, "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord." Let us reason together, God says. Our faith, of course, is belief and trust in things you haven't seen. It's belief in the unseen. 100% it's belief in the unseen. But is your faith reasonable? That's the question. Is your faith reasonable? Because there is a reasonable faith, and then there's an unreasonable faith. Like I don't think there's any reason to believe in the spaghetti god, right? I don't think there's any reason to believe in, millions and hundreds of millions of Hindu gods. I don't think there's a reason to believe in those things. And just like I don't believe there's a good reason to believe in the beginning nothing or in the beginning dirt. And we're going to talk about that in episode 2, how it takes more faith to be an atheist. God says, let us reason together. God, he values your questions. He created you to think. He created you to ask questions. And the answers are out there. And the answers lead to him. Acts 17:26 through 27. Acts 17:26 through 27 says, "From one man he made every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth." There it is again. He made man to live on the face of the earth. That's why we can know truth. Because we were put here. We were designed to live in this condition, in this environment. And this environment was created and designed for us to live here. And that's why we can trust our senses, why we can trust our brains, why we can trust the information that we get. I also want to just get on a rabbit trail here. It says, from one man he made every nation of mankind. I also want to point out, this one's just for free, right? That there's no room for racism in the beginning God. In the beginning God, there's no room for racism. Why? Because we all came from one man. We all come from the same family. But Yeah, we're all family. And because of in the beginning God, life matters. And it doesn't matter if that life is an elderly person who doesn't who can't really produce things to bring survival to our species anymore. That life is still valuable. Does even infants and children in the womb. We understand that life is special because we all came from one man, and that was the purpose and design of God. So we treat everybody, no matter what they look like, no matter where they came from. We understand that they are special because they're a human being made in the image of God, and so that's very, very significant. However, if you look at in the beginning dirt, and your idea is that there are more evolved creatures on this planet than others, well, then it's logically honest to say that there are more evolved humans on this earth. And let me tell you, naturalists, materialists, atheists, they don't like this because it's true. Logical honesty leads to the idea that some humans have evolved more than other humans. And so therefore some humans can have more value than other humans. Now they may choose not to believe that, and that's a choice that they make, but it's not consistent with their worldview, with their idea of what's true about this world. It's not consistent. You see, when they make choices like that, they're borrowing from the Christian worldview. They're borrowing from the Bible to say, I like this. This is good. I'm going to have this. But whoa. That doesn't compute from your worldview. And that's just the facts. There's a reason why Hitler and all those folks in the 30s and 40s thought the way they did about men of color and of Jews, and Darwinian evolution gave them the excuse to think that way. They believed that they were less evolved, and that's just facts. And let's talk about Darwinian evolution real quick. Let's talk about his book. I mean, look, our public education system, it is designed for you to know certain things and to not know other things. It's very designed, all right? And so it's designed so that if I say, hey, what is the book that Charles Darwin wrote? What's the name of it? Man, everybody raises their hand and say, we know it's the Origin of Species. Origin of Species. Good job, Johnny. You got Origin of Species. But they only give you the information you want to hear. They don't tell you about the whole title of the book. And let me share with you the whole title of the book here. The whole title of the book is The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. Now, some of you nerds would have got that, but most people don't get the rest of it because it's a long title. It says by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. That is the title of the book, The Origin of Species. Darwinian evolution. This is what's taught in our schools, all the way from elementary school, all the way to grad school. It is the origin of species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. London, 1859. All right, so now, of course, the atheist or the naturalist is going to argue, and they're going, oh, well, those favored races, he was just talking about animals, the species. Well, he didn't say species, and he didn't say animals. He sure did say races. And we usually only reserve the word races for human beings. But let's just live in your world for a second and say races means all kinds of animals. Well, in your worldview, we're an animal too. So you can't get away from it. If you believe in the beginning dirt and Darwinian evolution is your religion, because that's what it is, then you certainly can have racism. You have a justification for racism and treating humans less than what they are, depending on their condition, because of the idea of favored races. It's just the truth. All right. What's next? Okay, So that's a little tidbit about one man he made from every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth. Doesn't matter what you look like. That they should seek God. I want you to see that they have to live on the earth. We talked about that. And that the whole point of this truth is so that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. That's the point. So here's where it all lands. Truth is real. Truth is absolute. Truth is knowable. And truth has a source. If reality begins with dirt, then nothing ultimately matters. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your life, even your search for truth, it's all just chemical reactions bouncing around in a meaningless universe. But if reality begins with God, then your life has purpose. Your search for truth has meaning. And your ability to reason, to love, to seek, and to understand, it all points back to the one who made you in his image. That's why the Bible doesn't just describe a God who's, out there somewhere. It describes the God who created you, who gave you eyes to see and ears to hear, and a spirit capable of understanding not just this world, but also understanding him. He didn't create this world empty. He made it to be inhabited, and he had you in mind when he did. The same God who formed the heavens and the earth is inviting you to come to him. He says in Isaiah, "Come now, let us reason together." He's not afraid of your questions. He welcomes your search because he is truth. He's got nothing to hide, and he can be known. And he has made himself known in the creation, in the scripture, and within you. Here's some more good news. Truth isn't just an idea. It's not just information. It's not just data that we collect. Truth is a person. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And he invites you not just to know about truth, but to know him personally. That's what it's all about. So my question for you today is simple. Are you living in the beginning dirt, or are you living in the beginning God? Which life are you living? One path leads to meaninglessness and contradictions. The other leads to truth, to clarity, to life. My prayer is that you don't just walk away convinced truth exists after this. You walk away knowing the God of truth who made you, who loves you, and who calls you to himself. And again, I know there's going to be people who are like, Drew, this is a little thick, man. It's just laying on kind of hard, getting a little preachy. Well, you know what? That's why I've dedicated my life to this information. And to people, because there isn't anything more important in this life than this. People can, just like I said earlier, you can say that 2 + 2 is 5 all day long. You're going to find out that it's not. And you can say that God doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that he doesn't. And if we choose to live in the darkness longer than we should, or to just stay there, see, it's not just going to affect you. It's going to affect your spouse because you have a great influence on them. It's going to affect your children. And the worst thing I would want for anyone, because it's what I'd hate for myself, is that if I close my eyes in this world and open my eyes in the next world, and I wouldn't let my pride and my ego go, and I wouldn't humble myself and eat some humble pie and say, you know what? Yeah, I had some opinions that were wrong. I said things about God. I said things about the Bible that weren't true, because of my experiences, but I was basing truth on all my experiences with people rather than basing truth on the God who is truth. And instead of saying, yeah, I'd said some things that were inaccurate. I haven't always said things that were spot on. So I would hate for you to close your eyes in this life, open them up in the next, and going, what did I do? What did I do with my kids? I told them the wrong stuff, or I didn't tell them the stuff that I should have told them. So this is the most important thing, because look, I like to give people this kind of example, a timeline, right? This is millions of years here. There's an arrow on this end and there's an arrow on this end. There's no beginning and there's no end. This is eternity. And you're going to live on this earth if you live a long, fruitful life. You eat a lot of ice cream, a lot of brownies. You're going to live 90 years if you do really good. 90 years. What's that 90 years look like on that line? It's like a little speck. You got to ask yourself, brother, sister, are you living for that little speck or are you living for that line? Because the Bible says this life is but a vapor. We're not here very long. And so what are you investing in? This is the most important subject we can ever talk about. People get passionate about football. People get passionate about politics. People get passionate about Ford versus Chevy and Dodge. But when it comes to the most important subject that human beings could ever contemplate, we get tight-lipped. We get private. We don't know what to do. And I'm telling you, truth in the dark. This is a dark world. It's a fallen world. There is evil. Evil exists. And that's how it wants you to be. It wants you scared. It wants you keeping it private. It wants you not asking questions. It wants you to keep your mouth shut. And it wants to give you a lot of ideas that will kind of satisfy your curiosity. Maybe aliens. Maybe we evolved. Maybe that's how it all happened. Who knows? We'll find out later. Man, that's not good enough. It's not good enough for me. It's not good enough for my children. It's not good enough for my children's children. This stuff is bigger than me. It's bigger than you. I encourage you to watch this episode one more time if it didn't all sink in. Truth is knowable. Every time someone says a sentence like there is no truth, you just prove there is truth by making a truth claim. And truth can only be known. Truth can only be known if in the beginning God. And God created you to live here, and God created this world for you to live here. He designed your senses to collect information. He designed your brain to interpret that information so you can actually know truth. And you're created in his image, and it makes you special. It gives you the gifts and the abilities to be able to think and to reason and to love and to have the human experiences that you have. God is good. Man, I hope you get to know him. I hope you will join me on this truth discovery. I hope I can join you on your journey and be value added to answer some of these hard questions about what is truth about this world, about God, about the Bible, about Christianity, and so that you and your family may have life and life abundantly. And that's my heart. Thank you for listening. I hope you join me with episode 2, where it takes more faith to be an atheist. This has been Truth in the Dark, where light cuts through the shadows of an ever-darkening world. And though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear, for God has willed his truth to triumph through us. See you next time.